The courtroom buzzed with excitement, but it wasn't the usual tension that came with trials. This time, it was the laughter and arrogance of three corrupt police officers: Officer Kevin Harris, Officer Brian Miller, and Officer Scott Davis. They leaned back in their chairs, relaxed, knowing they had once again escaped justice. The judge tapped his gavel. Case dismissed. Cheers erupted from the officers' side of the courtroom. Kevin clapped Brian on the back. "Another day, another win," he said smugly. Brian chuckled. "They really thought they could take us down." Scott laughed, shaking his head. "Man, I love this job." For months, the three had been under investigation for racial profiling, excessive force, and planting evidence on innocent Black citizens. But, as always, their connections in high places ensured that the case fell apart before it could reach a fair verdict. The key witnesses backed out, accidentally lost, footage never made it to court, and just like that, they walked free. As they stood to leave, the courtroom doors swung open. A well-dressed Black man walked in, his presence demanding attention. He had sharp brown eyes, a neatly trimmed beard, and a confidence that was impossible to ignore. The judge cleared his throat. "Before we end today's session, I have an announcement." The room quieted. As of today, the city has appointed a new chief of police. The judge continued, "Please welcome Chief Malcolm Jenkins." Kevin, Brian, and Scott froze. Their celebration turned to horror. Malcolm Jenkins, the same Black man they had once falsely arrested, mocked, and treated like dirt, and now he was their new boss. Malcolm stepped forward, his voice steady. "Gentlemen, I look forward to working with you." Kevin's throat went dry. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Scott clenched his fists. The party was over. The next morning, Kevin, Brian, and Scott arrived at the precinct with heavy steps. The atmosphere felt different. The usual arrogance they carried was replaced by dread. Everyone in the department had heard the news. Malcolm Jenkins was now chief, and he had plans. As they entered, officers stood at attention, greeting their new leader with respect. Malcolm stood at the front of the room, hands clasped behind his back. He was in full uniform, his badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. His presence alone was enough to send a message. Things were about to change. Harris, Miller, Davis. The three flinched. Malcolm gestured for them to step forward. They hesitated, then walked toward him, their usual bravado gone. Brian forced a smile. "Chief Jenkins, it's great to have you here." Malcolm tilted his head slightly. "Is it?" Kevin cleared his throat. "Absolutely, we are ready to serve under your leadership." Malcolm said nothing. Instead, he placed a thick folder on the table in front of them. Inside were their files, every complaint, every accusation, every corrupt act they had committed over the years. Evidence that had been buried was now exposed. Scott's hands turned clammy. "Chief, listen, save it." Malcolm's voice was sharp. "You've abused your power for too long." Brian wiped sweat from his forehead. "Chief, we were just following." Malcolm's eyes darkened. "You weren't following the law. You were following corruption, greed, and racism. But today, that ends." The other officers in the room watched in silence, some with satisfaction, others with shock. Malcolm folded his arms. "Effective immediately, you're all suspended pending an internal investigation." Kevin's jaw dropped. "Suspended?" Malcolm nodded. "This department will no longer protect criminals in uniform. And you three? You're done." The weight of those words hit them like a ton of bricks. The very system they had abused was now turning against them. 2 weeks later, the entire city was buzzing. Chief Malcolm Jenkins wasn't just making empty promises. He was tearing down the old corrupt system and building something better. The internal investigation revealed everything: reports of excessive force, false arrests, illegal searches, and even stolen money from evidence lockers. Witnesses who once feared speaking up finally found their voices. The city had had enough. Kevin, Brian and Scott were arrested and dragged into the very same courtroom where they had once celebrated their victories. But this time, there were no high fives, no smug grins, no easy escape. The prosecutor stood tall as he read out the charges. Officer Harris, Officer Miller, and Officer Davis, you are charged with misconduct, abuse of power, falsifying evidence, and multiple counts of racial discrimination. The courtroom was packed. Journalists scribbled notes. Protesters sat in the back, waiting for justice. The judge, no longer under their control, was stern. How do you plead? Kevin swallowed hard. Not guilty. Brian's hands trembled. This is a setup. The prosecutor cut him off. We have video footage, sworn statements, and forensic evidence. The truth is clear. The jury deliberated for only an hour. When they returned, the foreman spoke with confidence. Guilty. Cheers filled the air. People hugged, clapped, and some even shed tears. Finally, justice had been served. As the officers were handcuffed and led away, Brian turned to Malcolm. You set us up. Malcolm smirked. No, you set yourselves up. I just let the truth come out. Kevin sneered. Enjoy it while you can. We'll be back. Malcolm's gaze was unwavering. No, you won't. The door slammed shut behind them. The reign of corruption was over, and Chief Malcolm Jenkins? He was just getting started, ushering in an era of accountability and reform that would reshape the Oakwood Police Department and restore the community's trust in law enforcement.